Here we talk about the future, right? So I've taken 4 visionaries, and here they are, to talk about where we're going as an industry. And the first question we'll talk about, it feels to me that we've all gone through AdTech 1.0, and Programmatic was AdTech 2.0, and it feels to me we're now in AdTech 3.0, which is mostly a data-driven environment. So let's talk about that, and why the data is now the differentiator in this whole space. So we'll talk to the man who's got more data than anybody else in this room. M Platform. Yes. Congratulations on your new job.
Thank you, thank you.
What is it you do now?
M Platform as part of GroupM it is GroupM's newest initiative to be honest, create competitive advantage for our agency clients.
Okay, that's a good answer. So it's good we'll start with you though, but it's sort of your attempt to build an identifier effectively and give you sort of a sort of stake. You already had a stake in the game, but make you more competitive as a business in this new brave new world.
Yeah, I think a lot of the topics in that sense are already covered today, and I don't think it's AdTech 3.0, and I don't think that data is the only differentiator. I think far from that, to be honest. I think there's a lot of different other assets that are relevant to that. But for us, looking at let's take it from an advertiser perspective, I think it's extremely important that we help advertisers truly understand what is their competitive advantage and how do they get good and sort of honest insights in who their consumers are. And I think that's the biggest challenge that they have, and that's the biggest challenge with how sort of the current ecosystem is built. So what we're trying to do with GroupM is create this universal identifier where we help advertisers based on the data assets that they have, the data assets that we have, and different like data assets that we have in our group as well as WPP, and help them identify exactly who their customer is, who their audience is, and then totally channel agnostic trying to reach that audience. And that goes beyond programmatic, that goes beyond digital, but really into all the different channels that are available.
So is Zaxxas dead now? Is that done?
No, it's the opposite, to be honest. I think Zaxxas has been growing faster than in previous years. I think we still have a tremendous traction. I think we have to be realistic, is that what we did with Zaxxas 5 years ago when we said advertisers need to move away from only context but move into a more sort of audience-led approach. That worked really well 5 years. I think the industry has followed the success of Zaxxas.
Yeah,
take a little bit of credit to that.
Great model.
And I think it's beyond Zaxxas. I think the overall industry now needs to take sort of an audience-first approach, and that's something we're trying to do with M Platform. So we moved Zaxxas more in an outcome guarantee corner, where we say, well, advertiser, if you understand that audience is important, how can we as Zaxxas help you to deliver the audience at a more cost-efficient way?
We'll come back to later. Wendy, are we in the war? Is it a data-driven war we live in? I had that sort of, that sort of moment of clarity when I go, right, if you have no first-party data, you're done. You're done in this industry. It's over.
Well, I don't really operate in this industry anymore.
No, you've managed to pivot out. Damn you, Wendy.
But and I don't speak much about advertising at all, but I speak about data every single day. And everyone has first-party data. Whether or not they apply it into their media buying and their media spending is still a work in progress, especially in this region, right, where the sophistication and innovation capability of some of the brands is still in its infancy. But I think everyone has first-party data. A lot of people are realizing that they don't have a relationship with their customer, and they need to figure out who their customer is and why and how to build a relationship with that customer. And whether they do that above the line and below the line or both and connect that activity together is what they're trying to figure out.
Right.
No, I think there's actually too much data is the problem now, right? Like if you look at all the different platforms that are generating, like if you look at a DSP or an SSP and the way you interconnect them, I mean, I saw a stat last week where we're now routing about 395 billion bid requests a day, right, on BidSwitch, which is a shit ton.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. But there's
all globally.
Yeah, per day. And it's, like there's
and
just so much.
And that's mostly Israeli ad networks, is it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, well, it's just, there's, yeah, well, no comment. Yeah. No, I mean, like header bidding has a lot to do with that, but there's just so much data being generated, but they're not really interconnected. I actually think where we're going to what we're going to see in the future, and how we're going to actually unlock that is, being smarter with the machines, right? Like Matt was talking about, make good use of the machines, like the machine learning. I actually think that's the next step, and I think we need that to really take advantage of the data.
We'll go to machine learning next.
Is it effective data what we're talking about?
Well, that's the thing. I think like it's hard to pinpoint the actual value of the data. I mean, like, yeah, there's first-party data, there's CRM data that you have, there's advertiser data that's being generated. How do you value all those different pieces of data? I mean, you have, a 26-year-old kid sitting there in Excel copying and pasting stuff, right? So, how do you make use of that?
But it's eventually it's the marketeer who sort of values or decides what the value of the data is, right? Sure.
This is
And I
my
think that's-
panel. This is my panel. So I want to go to next
I'm
to
thirsty.
No, carry
here.
on, I was enjoying
I
that.
want to next to the
You
great,
could've given
probably
us
the
beer.
archetypal ad tech 3.0 company, Oath or Oat. That's where I come from. I don't know how you pronounce it. So clarify how we should pronounce that, because if you're from the, if you're a geezer from the west, from the east end of London, Alf geezer, Alf. I work for Alf, right? If you're from Ireland, it's Oat, right? That sounds like a cereal.
You
right?
want some milk with that?
So how do we pronounce it? There, Alex.
The official pronunciation is oath.
Oath, right. So do you believe that, I mean, look, in all seriousness, it is potentially a pretender to the big two in this space. You've all these assets.
Challenger, not pretender. Challenger.
Challenger, I do. But you're obviously trying to take the crown, so you're a pretender to the crown, and you have to take the crown. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Challenger. So where do you sit now? Do you feel that your company now is sort of that data-driven entity that can compete with you? And remember, obviously, your parent company is Verizon, which is a massive telco.
I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding me.
Right. I thought I'd just do that.
I think everything that's been said so far, data is definitely king, and we're big on, and Tim is particularly big, our CEO, on where culture meets code. So what we have to do is we have to ensure that whatever we're providing, to some extent an extension of Michelle's answer, whatever we're providing, it's giving our clients, our advertisers, the best use of that technology to interpret that data. And B, we have to give the consumers what they want, which is essentially being able to access content when they want, what content they want, how they want to access it within whatever channel, and then provide the right level of overlay on that in terms of a solution, i.e., see the right ads that are applicable to you, not just blanket coverage. So whether that's 3.0 or not, I'm not sure. I just think it's about working smarter rather than harder.
It's a very political answer. Thank you, Alex. So let's talk about the advent of the walled gardens. I mean, we talked about it extensively today. Everybody wants to be a walled garden. Is this a huge problem for your clients? Because obviously now you're working around data and technology. The M platform seems to me a data technology play within Group M, and a smart play in many ways. And I'll probably ask a question about what happens to the opcos, because what are they now that you do everything? So, but in the first instance, what about these walled gardens? How do you work in that environment, and what is this just a new norm in the world, basically?
No, I mean, the walled gardens are here to stay, right? And hopefully there will be a third one, or a fourth one, or a fifth one. I think it's the two things there. The consumer is there, so advertisers are there. That's the reality, and it's for advertisers to understand what the risk is if we continue to have sort of a duopoly. That's one, and I think. In Europe, it's happening a little bit more, but also in Asia, I already see more conversations on the advertiser side on is a Google and Facebook only, or sort of a majority strategy. Does that make sense? But I think that it's more sort of an issue that we've created ourselves. I think, of course, Google, Facebook did a great job, but I also think as the independent publishers, we did a shitty job. We all pretend that we're big enough and strong enough to do it on our own, but the reality is not. So if we become a lot more, we as publishers, let me be clear.
Are you a publisher?
I'm not, but they're not in this panel, right? So let me speak for them, hopefully a little bit. If they bundle,
I'm a publisher.
You're many things, Alex.
You're a tech company, a publisher, you're a telco.
Yeah, you're all over the place.
I'm a little confused here, Alex.
You're a schizophrenic ad tech company.
I'm sorry, we're talking about Oath, not M platforms now, right?
Yeah. Okay. No, but I think if publishers are bundling their strength a lot more, then they create a more solid offer for for advertisers as well. And I think one of the things we try to do with Group M, with our universal identifier, is to bundle the smaller publishers, but also eventually the Google and Facebooks, and to give that advertiser that benefit, and really give the advertiser the insights that they need, which they don't get right now, because they might think who they know the consumer is, but as long as Google, Facebook, and everybody else in the industry reports on a different way and a different definition of that consumer, we're still not solving the problem.
Wendy, same question, which I've just forgotten what it was.
I've forgotten what it was as well.
I think it was something about data.
I think on the independent ID graph, which
Yeah.
I think is what you originally asked Michelle about, Oracle's working towards that as well.
You've got a big identifier play.
We do have a big ID play and a big open ID play, which does help people connect beyond Google and Facebook, right? And I think we work closely with them platform and others to help to have an open ecosystem where you can figure out who your consumer is beyond the walled gardens. And what I'm excited about is how we then apply that into the enterprise. But I think you're going to talk about AI later.
Yeah,
So,
it's a load of rubbish.
I think that's a huge opportunity, though, is what you're talking about is people collectively working together outside of the walled gardens to be able to have rich enough data to connect with the consumers across the ecosystem
Ryan,
and know who they are properly, right?
Ryan, how are you? I mean, you work with a lot of client direct. I mean, how are they approaching this? I mean, is it a case that you can actually, if you can't extract this data, how are you supposed to build proper attribution, proper targeting, proper?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky when you don't have a complete view, right? Because there's different IDs, and especially in Asia, where different onboarding platforms aren't really available here for you to onboard, your PII data to and get back something that you can activate. It becomes a little tricky. Some of the things that we're exploring is, well, how do you figure out different patterns where you can kind of start to fill in that gap, right? So okay, this pattern is happening with this ad server, this pattern is happening in your analytics. How do you kind of overlay those things and kind of build some sort of probabilistic model of what the consumer actually looks like? So I think that's some of the things that we're starting to explore with direct brands, with publishers, et cetera, too.
Is the probabilistic approach then, it's a probability that it's actually a real person or even what you think it is? I mean, deterministic data seems to be, first-party data seems to be king.
No, it absolutely is, but I think you need a way to extend your deterministic first-party data, right? Because the scale in that is just much smaller, and you're better off, with anything with, predictive analytics. Like, it's not to be 100% accurate; it's to be more accurate, and to make it more actionable, so that you can get better.
The goal is to shift the dial, right? You got to go from this level of accuracy to this level of accuracy.
And we should give you all our money, Alex. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if you don't want to spend it with Fugle, yeah.
Touche. So let's talk about the service layer, right? Because it's very important. It's a very important piece of the ecosystem. So we have all this technology, we have mountains of data, but the service layer is still an integral part of what we do in this industry in terms of execution. And the agencies are going through a bit of a, I wouldn't call it an existential crisis, but sort of a shifting of what they do. The consultancies are obviously breathing down your necks. They were auditors, and now they're pitching for global business, and probably see them in a lot of RFPs for big brands, etc. So we want to talk about what you guys are doing to combat that. I know that the gentleman this morning, was it Sanjay was on the panel. He talked very eloquently about consultants and how they are a real competitor, not to him and the agencies. But let's talk about what you guys are doing internally, like that shift with the M platform, where it effectively Group M is now becoming sort of the layer for the company itself.
Well,
and the opcos, I don't know what they do anymore. So
no, I mean, I think the opcos are extremely important in that, and you can have a few different approaches to it. I think what's been happening in the last, let's say, 24 months is that, and this is also sort of based on the discussions around transparency, etc., is that I don't think that the people actually doing all the work are getting a fair share of the money.
Are you talking about agency remuneration here?
I'm just talking about like $1 from an advertiser going to a publisher, and whatever the 30, 40, 50, 60% that somewhere sticks in the middle, I don't believe that the publisher gets a fair share. I don't believe that agency is getting a fair share. and maybe there are other players in between who are getting more than they deserve. And I think because of that, there's a lot of underestimation about the amount of work that actually is happening there. And one of the things that we're trying to do with M-Platform is to not sort of replace the opcos at all. I think what we're doing is we're empowering the opcos more than we've ever done before. M-Platform is also not an external brand. I mean, I don't walk around with an M-Platform business card. I walk around with a...
Do you walk around in a t-shirt or a hoodie or pajamas? I can imagine you in slippers walking around the place. And
It's pretty hard. We don't
Yeah.
wear much, right?
obviously, that's true, yeah.
Fair point. I think so what we're trying to do is like how do we make sure that all the knowledge and understanding that if we take programmatic out of as an example, here in APAC, Group M has 9,000 employees, so that includes all the opcos. Group M with the agencies, 9,000.
Right.
If you take programmatic right now, I think the majority of the knowledge around programmatic in Group M sits in Xaxis. That's about 350 people. Let's say that there are another 50 to 100 max sit outside of Xaxis because of the different desks that are set up. That's 450 people out of 9,000 who actually understand programmatic. And as long as programmatic is a niche, that's fine. But it's not a niche anymore.
Yeah, but if M Platform is the hub for data and technology, right? So you make the decisions about what data and what technology you use to execute, right? You're the hub. The opcos are for actually execution layer, right?
No, it's the other way around, because what we're trying to do right now is bring that knowledge that we have in these 450 people or whatever it is in this region to bring that to the opcos close to the client and the client teams. Because the biggest problem that we have right now is that not enough people in the opcos actually know about what programmatic is and how it works and how it contributes to the client's business challenges that they have. And there are two ways you can solve that. You can say, okay, let's pick all the smartest people that we have in our agency and build a separate new agency and start pitching that. Or you said, okay, we bring all the smart people that we have and bring them in the agency to make sure that they educate the other 8,500 that we have across the region.
And I think the problem is that there's still a lot of education to be done around digital and as a subsequent programmatic, right? In terms of where the consumer is versus where a lot of legacy businesses are, there's a massive gap. And so there's a lot of education that needs to be done. Agencies still have a huge role to play in providing that education. None of us can get enough talent to provide it, especially across some of the emerging markets, right? Maybe not in Singapore, but once you get out of Singapore, there's still a huge gap in terms of what people think they want to do and what they think they know how to do and what they can actually execute. So the consultancies that I see provide strategy around business transformation. That's forced by digital. The agencies help execute it, and the tech companies help enable it. There's a place for everyone.
There is definitely moves from the big consultancies to get into programmatic. I mean, they're hiring a lot of people from our space.
But not on the execution side.
Well, not yet, but potentially. Could you see a situation where the consultancies get into the execution area?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I mean, I saw on LinkedIn the other day, one of the guys that used to work here at Dentsu just joined PwC, right?
Oh, really?
Programmatic.
What did he do? What was his role at the agency?
He was a
Trader.
head of trading.
He was a trader.
A trader.
Yeah.
Really interesting. So what's he gonna do? Sit over there and do strategy?
Yeah, so
In London, so you can have him at ATS London.
Yeah, maybe. But is there a case that they may look? They're definitely in the RFP process. I mean, they've hired a couple of people I know already, and is there a chance that they may try and compete with the agencies, or is the agency model pretty solid in the execution area?
I think there's a chance that they will try and take the strategy away from agencies and make the agencies the execution arm. So if we go back to Michelle's point earlier, I mean, if you eliminate the tech tax, how much is an agency worth in that dollar? If you don't have strategy anymore and you're just the execution point. And that's what I think the real danger is for agencies, is if you get these consultancies coming in saying, hey, we're going to bring all these tools, all this strategy, we're going to be able to formulate your plan, but you're going to need someone to pull the trigger, then effectively agencies are just going to become buying houses.
Do you agree with that, Michelle? Do you think that you're going to be gutted eventually with all the tasty margin?
No, not at all. I think a lot of people underestimate the knowledge that agencies has built up over the years when it comes to strategy, when it comes to how media performs, when it comes to the actual execution, and how much of that is all connected to each other to be successful. I think it's very easy to, put on a technology hat and say, okay, I think the consultants are coming in for the agency's work. I think we're pretty far away from that, if at all, to be honest. And I think more and more clients will understand as well that the consultancy has their role to play. And it can be from a sort of business point of view, strategic advice. But when it comes to actual media marketing side, I think consultancies are nowhere close to doing that.
Do you think that agencies' roles have been debased, devalued over the years, and that a proper conversation is necessary because of the work you're doing now, which is very technology, very data focused, right? From what it was, 10 years ago.
But we're going through a transition in general, right? And I think in the last 15 years ago, 20 years ago, media agencies were not existing, and they were a side department of a creative agency. And maybe we're in another sort of big fundamental change of how media agencies are working. And I personally, from a more technology and data point of view, yes, I believe that media agencies need and will change between now and the next 12, 24, 36 months. And I think we as WPP and Group M are taking the front foot in that. I think agencies are not going to be the same as they were in the past, but it's also the relationship with the advertiser is changing. And it's not because advertisers don't feel their relationship with agencies trusted, but because they expect different things from agencies.
What do they expect from agencies now? Seriously, what does the client expect of you now that has changed?
That we truly understand what their business problems are and how technology and data can solve that. And it is less like previously maybe a 15-year client leader has been in his role for 15 or 20 years is sort of the ideal candidate to run an agency or an agency group. These roles are now more and more being taken by people with a technology and data
Well, that
background.
sounds to me like a consultancy business than a typical agency business.
Why?
Because I was going to say something very controversial. Because the world's changed, and technology and data require a lot more sort of ingrained skill sets to execute campaigns and manage campaigns.
Yeah, but there's still sort of the understanding on how media works, the strategic side. There still is a role to play there. I mean, if it was all about technology and data, then we don't have 9,000 people next year. We have 6,000 people next year. Well, it's not going to happen.
Okay, so we're not laying off 3,000 people. That's good. So let's shift the gears here into
maybe the consultancies want to hire them.
maybe they'll hire you. You'll probably WC by the end of the month. So let's change the gears quickly here before I get hit by Michelle. So Wendy, you obviously decided to leave AdTech, boo, boo, and went to Oracle, boo. And Oracle have made a number of acquisitions in the last 12 months, and they all surprisingly look like ad tech companies, between Sharedace and Crocs, and was that Cross Device one about? Crosswise. And I'm sure you'll buy more. So where do you see this convergence happening here? Is it a case that Martech just thinks ad tech's too cool and wants to be more like ad tech, or is Martech eating ad tech alive? Discuss.
Oracle Data Cloud, which bought all of those technologies, is a different part of Oracle. So they very much play in the ad tech space. And you spend a lot of time with them in Cannes. And
free booze.
It was work-related.
Work-related
except for
time
those
with them in
late
Cannes.
finishes at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to a bar. That wasn't work.
But enabling clients to take advantage of the data signals all across their business is very important. And so I think that part of Oracle is very focused on ad tech. That's not the part of Oracle that I work for, and that's not where Oracle makes most of its money. It does make a nice amount of money there, but that's, they do ad tech, very much do ad tech. The marketing tech part of it is the software as a service part of it, of which BlueKai, the DMP, does sit in, but the rest of it is marketing automation, cross-channel orchestration, site-side optimization. In the case of Adobe, it's content and experience management. It's a whole bunch of other stuff that has nothing to do with advertising, but has everything to do with the marketer's relationship with their customer. And then it goes beyond that to connect into customer service and sales and the supply chain in terms of the end-to-end customer experience. So marketers don't spend all day talking about advertising or ad tech or programmatic.
Why not?
Because it's just a small part of what they actually need to do to interact with their customers and with their prospects. So, I think an entire business transformation being enabled by technology because of digital is a whole different conversation, right? So I think Oracle has, I don't know what the roadmap is for that team, obviously. Or if I did know, I wouldn't be able to say it. But I don't think they're finished acquiring.
What do you think, taking your Oracle hat off and just me and you speaking there, who do you think they'll buy next?
I hope at some point they buy an ad server.
Ooh, like DoubleClick, because apparently Google's been forced to sell it by the European Union.
I don't
It's
know
on the market.
I don't know who it would be, but I think in terms of data signals, that would be a really interesting addition to
So
the
that's an execution
stack,
there. I mean,
right?
they're not afraid to, so what you're saying, I mean, obviously Adobe's proved that they do, that the marketing stacks, clouds, whatever they call themselves, will buy execution layers. And Adobe bought TubeMogul, for instance.
Yeah, I don't think that Oracle I think they're so connected into the execution layer already from a buying perspective. I don't think they'll buy a buying tool, but I think ad serving's slightly different. But we'll see. I have no idea, right? Like,
Well,
I'm just
that's a good one. So Seismic's price has just gone up. Hold on, they went private. Who's a public ad server? There's no public ad server, so okay.
I have no idea though. I've never.
Right.
I
Good.
don't,
No, you're on the record. It's on the video.
Personally, I would like to see that. I have no idea what the roadmap
Exciting.
is.
I can't wait for that.
I got a question for Wendy. Are you, as Oracle, are you not worried about the consultancies taking a lump out of your lunch?
Oh, we work really closely with the consultancies. The consultancies.
They work with everyone. Doesn't mean to say that they're loyal.
Well, of course they're not loyal, but they don't have their own tech. So they do a lot of advisory around what tech people should buy, and they do a lot of implementation and hand-holding around enabling people to execute, but they don't have the actual technology. So no, I'm not worried about the I'm worried about us having better influence on the consultancies, that they understand that we play in this space.
There clearly is a role, though, for a new entity that sits between the consultancy and the agencies, if you will. I do feel that.
Casper
I
talked
actually
about
do
it
believe
today.
there is
Casper talked exactly about it. I think Wonderman are doing exactly that.
Yeah,
right?
well, DMP integration is not an easy thing, and there's a lot of companies doing RFP processes now for
But
technology.
there's an enormous amount of agencies and consultancies helping people do DMP integration, implementation, and operation already. There's loads of people doing that.
Yeah, but I think too, like the weird thing about that, like, you know, from previous roles, right? Like having worked with large advertisers and the kind of big tools like the Cruxes, the Salesforces of the world, you're almost having to conform to their stack and what they're capable of, right? They define a business problem, then at the end of the day, when you run the RFP, you're kind of like, oh, okay, this one fits best, so we'll adopt this one, right? So I think there's going to be actually a future where, you know, like a custom stack, somebody that just comes in and says, okay, you know what, here's the business problem that we are actually trying to solve. Let's build you something, you know, first party that can actually do it. I think there's going to be space in there, and I think, you know, like the consultancies may try to go in that direction.
Or the agencies, maybe.
Well, the consultancies do build a layer like that already.
I'm still in
Like
there for you, Michelle. I think you've got a future.
You know,
At PwC.
Accenture do that, right? They optimize on top of our tech to make it work for a specific use case.
Yeah, I mean,
So that happens already.
yeah, there's some of that, but like, I think there's still not really at the core a technology company that can actually, you know, kind of execute.
No,
that.
they're not.
Okay, so we've all agreed that Martech is just email. So let's move on.
I said it was a lot more than email.
Yeah.
And by
Anyway,
the
it's just
way,
email. So let's move
email's
on.
still one
MailChimp,
of the most
that's Martech.
effective
Anyway.
channels there is. So there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
I know,
It
I'm
still works.
joking, but seriously, email. Let's talk about something really interesting, like ad tech, right? So, margin compression has come around. We know that a lot of vendors are making 25%. The Trade Desk, for instance, although we won't mention that again, and other public companies are, you know, their fees are out there. So, are we seeing potentially consolidation coming in the space? I mean, Oath or whatever we call them, are a good example of two companies bringing all of those assets to bear, and there will be, despite the fact they have like 17,000 different products under one umbrella, there will be some kind of level of integration there, which probably will end up with this man being the most powerful ad tech man, apart from Robbie over here, in this region. So you've got, like, you know, all this mobile video under one stack. So are we going to see a consolidation? So we'll start with a man who deals with many ad tech companies and has taken to many dinners by those people, and probably skiing trips as well, Michelle.
We go to luxury resorts here, not ski trips.
Sorry, I apologize.
We do Bali and
Bali. We have no snow here. Sorry.
Diving as well.
No, I just found out that I didn't receive an invite for his launch party next week.
Oh my
So
God!
that's,
Are you?
I'm probably not on that
Because
list.
you're a competitor. Whole things, every competes.
His emails ended up in spam, but that's her business again. So I'm a little confused.
Email doesn't work.
doesn't work.
You're
What was your
obviously
question?
using the wrong provider.
So we're getting distracted here. Jesus, it's like having a bunch of kids on stage. Be professionals, really. What I'm trying to say is, are we seeing a consolidation in the ecosystem? Is it going to happen now? That particularly if margin compression happens in the space, are we going to see probably a handful of the SSPs, probably a handful of DSPs, and exchanges at scale? So we're talking like maybe 6 companies in total that can probably compete on an equal footing globally.
Yes, I mean, consolidation is happening. I think consolidation is happening in every industry at the moment. We see it with our clients. We even see it within our own group with what we now call Newco with Maxis and MEC. There's
Newco, it's called.
Newco.
So it hasn't got a name.
It doesn't know.
Okay.
No, that is the name.
That is the name.
Nuco.
No, it's not the name.
Is it
It's
called?
easier to pronounce Newco than
Is it Maxis and then?
And that's why you didn't get the invite.
There you go. Muco. Muco. Let's call it Muco.
I
Right.
thought that was a place you went surfing, Nuki.
Right. Answer the question, please.
No, so, yes, there's a lot of consolidation happening. Like the question is, like consolidation gives also efficiency, right? And the question is, where is the efficiency going to? Is that going to the shareholders of Oath, or is that going to in the benefits to the clients, or eventually in sort of towards innovation? I think as long as there's still room for, let it be local, regional, or global companies to continue to innovate and come with new challenging, let it be technologies or opportunities, then there's room for that. And I think there's also a role for the agency to play there, to constantly, outside of the sort of consolidated agglomerates, to continue to look at opportunities to come with something new to our clients.
Do you think that there is a negative? Ryan's obviously all over this because he's looking to the future here. But I'm going to just give you sort of a nice, easy, slam dunk. But you think there's an overly negative view in ad tech right now because we have so much in front of us that is just starting to become programmatic, and we've all new areas like blockchain, which could solve the transparency issue, VR, which is potentially it could happen, VR, AR. There's so many opportunities out there. So if display becomes consolidated, there's going to be far more interesting opportunities for ad tech to get involved in over the next couple of years.
Yeah, there's that. There's the new opportunities, but just to go back to consolidation, I think there will be consolidation with all the different ad tech players. So DSPs obviously will, a lot will shut down or get bought, and a movie buying turn, all that stuff. But then what we're also seeing as a trend is, the larger publishers or larger advertisers that don't necessarily want to give up that 25% to a DSP or an SSP are starting to really look at, well, maybe we should just do this ourselves, right?
I mean, build it
our own.
themselves.
Yeah.
Talk to borrowers, in other words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that they're at that stage now where that level of sort of sophistication on the
No,
sell
I definitely
side?
think they're at that level of maturity when they've used enough of these platforms and they kind of know what the weaknesses are and they know where it's not fulfilling their needs, that they actually go out and they start to work with consultancies and really dig in and say, okay, how do we do this ourselves? And is it actually, if you're churning through millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and you're giving away 25%, maybe it is worth just building one for a couple $1 million.
How much could you build it for? A couple of million. You build it for like $1 million. Will you?
Yeah, but it doesn't
Depends
stop.
what you want.
But it also doesn't stop there, right? Because you need to continue to invest in it because of the new developments.
Of course.
And I think it's for an advertiser extremely difficult to sort of custom-made invest in technology and or in execution, because one, it's not their core business. And Sanjit, amongst a lot of things, he said something wise this morning where he said, okay, let's just focus on the things that you're good at, and that's probably not execution of ad tech or execution of media buying in general or investing in the tech itself. And I think, I don't know a lot of cases where advertisers said, you know what, I don't want to pay the 25% or 20, whatever the number is, and said, I'll build that tech myself, and I'll take a company that delivers me a few elements of that, and I get a few engineers building that stuff together. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I hope that you guys are going to do very successful. But give me 2 advertisers.
I'm going to defend Ryan here, right? So, like, let's be honest, right? If you're a TV company like a la MCN this morning, right, or a digital out of home company, right, where you are under severe threat from, again, I apologize for, bleating again, but Facebook and Google, who have just unbelievable scale and are trying to infiltrate other parts of business to grow revenue, you sort of have to protect yourself. And sometimes vendors don't have that ability. So we're built for digital advertising, right? So video and display. But what about digital out of home? It's a whole different ball of shit there completely. Like, have you gone to out of home conference? It's completely, it's a crazy space. But they realize they have to do something. So the customization works in that.
Out of home needs to sort of look back at what happened 7 years ago. What happened with broadcasters and happened on the TV and their digital assets, and all the decisions that they made, they just should go in the opposite direction.
Okay. So Alex, you obviously disagree with that completely. Oath for everything.
Do I? Funny you should mention MCN. They are a partner of ours in Australia using our Programmatic TV platform. They are.
Do you think you're in a good position right now as a company, having brought 2 fairly sizable ad tech companies together on media assets and data assets to sort of survive the next layer of consolidation, and you're able to compete globally as well?
Well, I think that conundrum's been swirling around for the last couple of years. We've been talking about tech tax for the last couple of years, and going back to a point Michelle made earlier on, how much is the actual publisher getting? Because the advertiser wants to know my dollar is being spent in the best way, and then the publisher, to release all the best inventory, wants to know they're getting the best yield for it. So if you start, consolidation is driven out of eliminating that need for tech tax. So essentially you're coming through now is how much is your agency worth, how much is their 1 or 2 tech partners worth, and then how much is going to the publisher. So will that spill out into other aspects of the channels? Yes, of course. We're already seeing TV coming to it. OTTs coming into it, connected TVs coming into it, and it's all coming into the programmatic platforms. 1, because it delivers scale, and 2, because it delivers efficiencies. Therefore, you're going to see a lot more consolidation because you're only going to have a certain number of companies that can connect all those together.
Okay, so we've got 2 minutes left. So this is a panel about future gazing. Let's talk about the next 12 months and what you're super excited about. Yay! Michelle, what are you super excited about in the next 12 months? And don't say about your new job at PwC, because obviously that's another thing as well.
I'm super excited about PwC, obviously. And no, I think I'm really excited about sort of the change that's going to happen in the industry. And it sounds very vague, but I do believe that we're at the beginning of a big change. I do believe that technology and data are going to take a more prominent role that they've taken so far. And I do believe that we're going to solve a lot of issues that we have today when it comes to, let it be transparency, let it be sort of let's hopefully we're fixing the different sort of bad metrics that we're working with today, because eventually everything goes back to lack of understanding and lack of metrics and lack of proper metrics to drive this industry forward. But I think the last part is, like, we have a massive discussion about who's taking which cut in the total supply, sort of just total supply chain. I'm just wondering if other industries have that as well. I don't know the answer to that, but are we, like, if I pay here in Singapore $3 for a tomato, which is sometimes the case, by the way, how much is actually going? Tomato. Yeah. Oath.
It's like oath and oat.
Oatmeal. If I buy oatmeal, how much goes to the oatmeal producer?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how many, like, if other industries have that as well. I don't know what the answer is, but
okay. That's very vague. Thank you, Michelle. Wendy, obviously MailChimp is the future of Martech. I believe that's the theme song for MailChimp.
I'm excited about the application of third-party data beyond advertising and taking it into the enterprise to drive proactive offers and interactions in the supply chain, customer service, probably the employee experience as well.
That sounds very complicated. Could not just do retargeting? That would make it much easier. Ryan, can you build me a full stack by next week, please?
Probably could. Depends what you want. Yeah.
12 months. What are you excited about?
I think there's things that we didn't touch on, like supply path optimization. I mean, obviously we're very tech heavy, so like the stuff that's going on with how we process data and how we kind of, play an advantage for either the demand side or the supply side. I think the stuff that's actually happening in the background that most of the people here don't see but touch every day, that's the stuff I'm kind of excited about immediately.
And Alex Khan, is it all about you being anointed the king of APAC by Timmy Armstrong? Yay!
For me, I think it's more about the use of single anonymized user ID going cross-channel. I think that's going to be the most exciting thing, because that's what's going to connect supply and demand. You're going to need to track that user across the supply. You're going to need to then use that in the demand side to effectively improve the efficiency on buying.
Gentlemen, Wendy, great discussion, great fun, great banter, and you're a great addition to the show. And thank you very much. Round of applause, please.